Hello and welcome. A warm Carnegie welcome to all of us joining from all time zones. Our panelists here, we're joining you from California and Houston and our hardworking staff in DC. But previous RSVPs, the RSVP list were coming in from Japan, other parts of Asia, a couple of you in Europe. I have no idea what time it is, so thank you for taking time in your busy schedule. We're very, very excited because we have an excellent program today, and we're joined by some wonderful panelists. This is how this will unfold. First, I have a few introductory remarks. Then we'll turn to each of our panelists, and then we'll have some time for discussion and Q&A. And so there is a button there where you can put in your questions. We might not have time to get to all of your questions, but I'll pick and choose and send them out. So first, let us introduce our panelists. First, I'm Kenji Kushida. I'm a senior fellow for Japan Studies at Carnegie's Asia program. I direct the research and programming on Japan, including the new Japan Silicon Valley Innovation Initiative. And that's where a lot of us have been talking to each other before this. So first panelist that's going to go after my remarks, Mr. Wataru Doug Kuribayashi, who is the president and CEO at Presidio Ventures. And he's also senior vice president, general manager of the Silicon Valley office of Sumitomo Corporation of Americas. Welcome. And then is Mr. Ryosuke Ricky Sakai, who's senior vice president of new business development at Mitsubishi Heavy Industries America. And he's based in Houston, and where he focuses on decarbonization of the energy sector. And then we're delighted to be joined by Ms. Aki Jiang, who's a principal at World Innovation Lab, commonly known as WIL, where she focuses on direct investments in enterprise software and health tech. Welcome. So first, let me jump to my slides for my introductory remarks. Please let me know if you don't see them up. This StreamYard software is a little different from what I'm used to. We're good? Okay, so today's topic, on the frontier of US-Japan technology collaborations. First, a couple words about our Japan initiatives at Carnegie. There are three pillars. It's a multilingual program. So for a global audience in English, the theme is Innovative Japan, Global Japan. And it includes some of the series that have been coming out in writing, Startup Japan. And another project, Demographic Change as Technological Opportunity. And so we're looking for ways to spotlight some of the interesting, innovative parts of Japan and sort of rewrite the narrative, because a lot of us are not only tired of the lost decades narrative, but also think that that narrative does not do justice for a lot of the potential that Japanese companies and Japan as a country offers the world. At the same time, Japan can serve as a model for many things that other places can learn from, and not just things not to do, but also some things that can be useful. And so it's sort of reshaping this narrative. For the Japanese audience in Japanese, some of the themes are the digital transformation, innovation, introducing some aspects of US policy, and generally connecting Japan to a web of international connections that Carnegie offers as the global think tank. And the third pillar is really bridging Japan and Silicon Valley. And this is in English and Japanese, the Japan Silicon Valley Innovation Initiative at Carnegie, commonly known as JSV. Carnegie will have a new website soon. It's an ever-receding horizon for the past few months, but it's going to come out soon. And then you'll see more of the public-facing part. Our activities are public-facing, and they're also the sort of closed doors and then direct input into policy makers in multiple places. So we'll have a more public presence shortly. So that's the Japan initiatives at Carnegie that I'm directing. So here's some framing to get us started. There's traditional trade and then digital economy. Well, a recent concern that we've seen in the headlines, of course, was a very traditional trade deal that sparked the political backlash. Nippon Steel attempt to purchase U.S. Steel. Even though U.S. Steel is no longer a leading company, the unions are strong, and the Biden administration felt like it had to listen to the concerns of the union. But this is sort of the classic if you will, 1980s era, a big Japanese company buying American company in the same sector, traditional. But the narrative is easy, right? Company A buys company B. There's cross-border movement of goods, funds, etc. This is all traditional trade. However, much of US-Japan value creation in the current digital economy is much harder to measure. Right? So, I mean, let's just think about these kinds of cross-border value creations in the new digital economy. How do you measure the impact of Google in Japan? Of course, it transformed the advertising. Of course, it transformed how people access information. But then how do you measure the impact of Google's office in Japan, right? I mean, you can measure data centers by the amount spent to build things, but a Google office in Japan, actually, the amount of foreign direct investment is negligible because it's just an office, not a big capital expenditure. But one of the things that you quickly discover when you're talking to a lot of entrepreneurs in the startup ecosystem of Japan is that many people actually pass through Google Japan as part of their pathway into joining the startup ecosystem. It might even act as a major human capital mobility accelerator, as a sort of a side effect, which is interesting, but this doesn't show up in trade statistics. It doesn't show up in foreign direct investment. So again, how do you measure the impact that's probably about to happen in a big way of Japan deploying generative AI, like OpenAI or Anthropic's generative AI solutions into various productivity enhancing processes? It doesn't show up in the traditional trade statistics or traditional trade narratives. It's no longer a mental model that works so well. So how do we create new narratives? New, simple mental models and narratives. Mental models is how we make sense of the world. What's important, what's not important, causal, something causes something. Humans use mental models to understand how the world works. Well, what are those mental models? And these narratives, which are common frames, mental models, they can be useful into understanding the nature of deep economic ties that bind important nationwide relationships like Japan and the US. So for example, here's some framing. A new wave of US-Japan collaborations is underway. Please see our previous webinars and some of the things that I've written for Carnegie. Key technological collaborations occur in the private sector. Public sector support can be very important, not just as subsidies, but also through procurement. And one of my favorite examples that we introduced 2 webinars ago was Komatsu's partnership with the Silicon Valley company Skycatch, which sends drones up to make 3D maps of construction sites. Well, this is a paradigmatic case, and that's one of the things we're looking for. Paradigmatic cases that are not just specific instances, but an example of a broader typology of what we can see. And so in this case of Komatsu and Skycatch, it was a Silicon Valley company that partnered with global construction company, equipment maker Komatsu, for within 7 years or so, it was deployed in about 70,000 locations around the world. So what does this mean? Well, let's reframe what Japan's presence in the global economy is a little bit. Let's think of it this way. There's really a fabric of Japanese multinational companies that can act as a global platform for other collaborators, right? Japanese multinational companies, they're present, the ones that we'll hear from today, in hundreds of countries, hundreds of subsidiaries all over in various business areas. So technologies and businesses that are co-developed with Japanese companies, let's say in the US or in Silicon Valley, they can access global markets through Japanese multinational global footprints. And so this is one framing of how these collaborations can work. So Japanese multinational companies can also be drivers of collaborative development and deployment, right? So when we think of technology collaborations where President Biden and Prime Minister Kishida have gotten together several times and announced that they want to do deep tech collaborations. What do some of those things look like on the ground in the front lines? Well, oftentimes the Japanese multinational companies are all over. They understand the pain points, what needs to be done, the market needs of various places around the world, and they have the resources often to co-develop with US or Silicon Valley companies and deploy them, which isn't just the same as saying, I'd like to buy your technology as a finished product as a customer and then deploy it. That's one pattern. But also saying, look, in these other markets, this is what they need, which is an opportunity to improve the offerings of the US companies. So there's real potential for collaboration where things happen together in a sort of a win-win scenario, if you will. So Japanese traditional strengths, of course, are in improvement, incremental improvement, and deployment rather than breakthrough innovation. So the current technological era of things like AI and what we're going to hear about today, climate tech and things like this, health, this is an area where big Japanese companies can actually play a great role in helping to improve and then implement technologies that are initially developed elsewhere. And of course, it's not quite as rosy as I might say, because of course there are some real challenges, but they're not insurmountable, right? In big Japanese companies, longer term planning is taken seriously. This is a strength. At the same, so the next quarter's earnings aren't so well, so you have a new CEO, and then all your planning is out the window with the new strategy. This doesn't happen very often unless there's a serious crisis. At the same, which makes things like climate tech investments or others co-developing things, it's a strength. At the same time, the longer term planning also means that the initial movements of Japanese big companies are often slower, sometimes much slower than counterparts want. This is a challenge. And so when I talk to Silicon Valley companies and other US companies, I often have to say, you have to be very patient because there doesn't seem to be movement in the beginning, but that's an artifact of more consensual decision-making. The society is hierarchical, the companies are socially hierarchical, and there can be a seniority-based system, but decision-making is actually quite consensual. So it's not a top-down person with the CEO saying, do this, and then everybody follows. There's a lot more onboarding that needs to happen. So their counterparts can get impatient, but once those things are put behind them and things start to move, then the Japanese company can move very fast and with real long-term commitments. There are a variety of collaboration mechanisms that we can see. There are more than my list here. Each of them has its strengths and challenges. We don't need to go into all of them, but here are some of the things to look for tech collaborations. There are direct investments. There are business partnerships. The big company can be a lead customer, which helps, that means that it helps co-develop the technology, not just use it. Corporate venture capital, which is a venture capital outfit where the company, the main parent company, provides most of the fundings rather than third-party external investors, and limited partner investments into venture capital firms. So many different companies invest into a VC firm, and then innovation offices that many of our friends are at the moment. So what's happening at the frontier? That's what we're here for today. Today, we'll see a small slice from 3 different, very important, and I find quite exciting vantages. Japanese trading company in a wide variety of activities in the US, including corporate venture capital investing, right? Helps the US startup ecosystem and accelerates innovation, and it can also help Japan. Major heavy industries company with broad, extensive presence in the US, driving the climate tech transformation, which benefits the US and benefits Japan. One of the things I've been saying for quite some time is that looking at how Japan's role will unfold in the energy transformation is not just to look at what's happening in Japan and its various inside the domestic economy, but also the fabric of global multinationals like what we're going to hear today, what they're doing outside Japan, because a lot of the innovation can happen there through partnerships and then be brought not only to Japan, but other places as well. Venture Capital and Corporate Transformation Facilitator, this is Will, bridging Silicon Valley and Japan through investments and corporate transformations. So that's it from me, and looking forward to hearing from our wonderful panelists. So we'd like to start with Kuribayashi-san, if you could take it away. Thank you.
All right, so let me introduce about Sumitomo Corporation and Presidio Ventures today. My personal background is sales and business development in IT, telecommunication, internet, and media sector in Japan and the other countries. So could you go to the next slide, please? So I will, first of all, touch upon a little bit, touch upon the Sumitomo's historical roots. Sumitomo itself is, was founded in 19th century in Japan, in Kyoto. Firstly, doing the drug and book sales, and Sumitomo prospered from the trade mine. The copper mining and copper trading at that time. And with the we have the business principle since then. And my favorite is at the bottom, Article 2. Second article, it's saying that the foresight and flexibility in order to cope effectively with the change of times. So, which means that we are always, adapt to the change of the market and try new things. So, under this principle, we are doing the corporate venture capital activities in the U.S. Next slide, please. Sumitomo Corporation is one of the largest conglomerates in Japan, doing the wide variety of businesses across the industries globally. I'm not really explaining so much detail about this, but from the kind of heavy industries like energy, infrastructure, like mineral resources and metal products, to the other sectors like transportation, living related, real estate, food, retail, to the media and digital business in the world. Next slide, please. So I want to emphasize that Americas, our business in Americas, the presence is pretty big in Sumitomo Corporation. So roughly 30% of the net income is coming from the Americas, including North America and Latin Americas. With the asset investment, roughly 20% of the total asset of Sumitomo Corporation. So in terms of the ROI, asset efficiency, the business in America is really efficient, profitable, and a big presence in Sumitomo Corporation. Next slide, please. And those are the part of the portfolio companies in the U.S. or Americans, so including Presidio Ventures like this. So we are doing, like, for example, like the rental and the distribution business of the construction machinery equipment. We are doing the Komatsu distribution business in the U.S. in Florida, and we have a lot of, for example, like renewable energies and like a mushroom production, sulfuric acid distribution, and like agri input business, cosmetics, so on and so forth. Okay, next slide, please. So this is a little bit busy slide, but this is the profile of the Presidio Ventures, which is the 100% subsidiary of Sumitomo Corporation. We are the corporate venture capital, founded in 1998, maybe one of the oldest. At that time, there was no in the world the CVC at that time. So we have the three offices: Silicon Valley, Boston, and Los Angeles, and we are focusing on the early stage. Our sweet spot is a Series A, and check size is typically like up to $3 million plus follower investment. And I'm gonna talk about the focus areas in the later slide. But our activity goals is to pursue the financial returns as well as the business development, which means the strategic return for Sumitomo Group companies. And this pie chart is showing the distribution of the stage of our investment. Our sweet spot is Series A, or before Series A, sometimes C stage or Series B. We invested in 26 companies since I came here into the US 4 years ago. Go to the next slide, please. Our focus areas like this. So this is really aligned with the Sumitomo Corporation's strategic focus areas. So we've been doing the venture capital business for more than 25 years here. And for the first 20 years, we have been focusing on the digital, so-called DX, basically IT related, and also media internet related investment. But in the recent 4 or 5 years, we are expanding our investment scope to the other industrial areas to be in line with the Sumitomo's strategy, like energy innovation, social infrastructure, and agriculture business, which is the right-hand side. So, like in more detail, like energy includes like hydrogen, like ammonia, sustainable aviation fuel, CCUS, and some rare metal, lithium for the battery, or those kind of thing. And infrastructure includes mobility, robotics, logistics, and we have the big footprint of the agriculture business in South America. So like we are doing smart farming, clean farming, and alternative protein related investment. So we are trying to address the big social agendas, including the decarbonization, the labor shortage, and food shortage here. And the retail, consumer, and healthcare, those are also the focus areas of the headquarters side. But it's not easy to transfer those business model from the U.S. to the other countries because of the difference of the regulation or consumer behavior. So we are kind of opportunistically chasing the deal in those two areas, depending on the demand from the business side. So as a result of that, you can see on the pie chart, roughly half of our investment is somehow DX related, and the others energy and infrastructure and agriculture investment. Yes. Next slide, please. So we have 18 staff in Presidio Ventures, roughly half local, half expats from Japan. We are closely collaborating with the Sumitomo Corporation of Americas to develop the business in the US as well as in the other countries. And we have the sister company called SGSK, one of the largest system integrators in Japan. They collaborate with the Presidio, especially for the technical evaluation and the business development in Japan and the Asian market. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this is very important because we pretty much emphasize the local network with the other venture capitals and universities and accelerators. Those are all the deal source for us. So the top tier venture capitals, and recently in the presence of the corporate venture capital is increasing in the market. It's roughly like more than half, right? So of the total venture investment. So CVC very important to collaborate with, and in the industrial fields like energy sector, those venture capitals are a little bit different from the traditional IT investors. So we are continuously developing the new network with outside the community. Okay, so next slide, please. This is the portfolio companies. We have more than 50, and as you can see, the many companies in IT on the top left-hand side, and we are increasing the number of investment in the climate tech sector as well as the kind of infrastructure sector in the middle of in the right-hand side. Okay, so next slide, please. And distribution, the regional distribution. So the roughly half of the our investment is concentrated in the Silicon Valley, West Coast, and remaining half East Coast, Boston, New York area, and otherwise distributed pretty much across the country. Okay, next slide, please. I'm not talking about the. This is just an example of the capacity exit. Next slide, please. And this is the last slide. We are the part of the global CVC network of Sumitomo Corporation. So we have some other like sister companies in Tel Aviv, London, Hong Kong, and Tokyo. Okay, that's all my presentation. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Kuribayashi-san. So it's very easy to take slides that have more than 18 boxes in them and make it boring, but you made it very exciting. And I think it's very important to frame a couple things here. I mean, here in Silicon Valley, we often talk about disruptive business models and disruption, but you've been around since the 19th century and then antecedents before that. And so old companies doing new things, and you're at the forefront of so many things. Just a quick editorial for those of us in the audience who aren't so familiar with the world of venture capital. Just a quick clarification. Corporate venture capital, often companies look for financial returns. You invest a certain amount and then you get more money back. Okay, that's good. Also strategic. So you invest in startups that then have some kind of synergy with your business areas. So you invest in a company that then you can connect to your one of many different business areas. And so, yeah, and then your slide of exits in Silicon Valley venture capital world terminology. Exits means that it was a successful investment that then did an IPO, or it was acquired by another company, so you got returns on it. Because yeah, some of us in our audience might not be that familiar with those. And exit doesn't mean that you left either. So thank you so much. Next, we'd like to turn to Sakai-san from Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, another traditional company doing new things.
All right. Thank you very much for having me today for this, a very exciting panel today. So again, my name is Ricky Sakai from Mitsubishi Heavy Industries America, based here in Houston. And I'm leading strategic investment for energy transition so that we can achieve net zero company goal. We call it Mission Net Zero throughout the partnership with startup and also corporate innovation. I myself have been working for Mitsubishi Heavy Industries almost 20 years, but I myself have been doing the product which has been emitting CO2 a lot. But last 3 years, I have been focusing on promoting decarbonization technologies that will offset what we are doing, what I'm doing last 20 years. So I'm transitioning myself throughout this, decarbonization momentum. So let me start from introducing Mitsubishi Heavy again. Same as Sumitomo, we are all, one of the oldest conglomerate company, Mitsubishi. And Mr. Iwasaki started Mitsubishi 1870, more than 150 years ago. And the Mitsubishi Heavy is one of the origin of the Mitsubishi Group. And after World War II, Mitsubishi Group was separated, but we are sharing the brand as Mitsubishi. And currently, Mitsubishi Heavy as a technology and the engineering company have been doing business across industries, all the way from energy, power generation, infrastructure, transportation, and space and defense. So we have almost 80,000 employees, but almost 20% of employees are working here in North America. And we have headquarters here in Houston, and more than 60 locations across North America. And we have been offering a product across industries, as you can see all icons on the screen. But as a technology and the engineering company and the conglomerate, we are holding more than 20,000 patents across industries. However, as you can see, our product lineups, we have been contributing industrial revolution of the Japan as a nation. That means we have been emitting a lot of CO2 from our products, so like engines, turbines, boilers, and the all internal combustion products has been emitting CO2. So 3 years back, 2021, we announced very ambitious goal to achieve net zero by 2040, including scope 3 emissions. This is very ambitious and the challenging goal because our scope 3 emission is all emissions of GHG from our product we delivered over 100 years. So this is very challenging, but to be committed to achieve so that we can help industries to achieve net zero by 2050. And we set the goal 2040, 10 years ahead of the other countries and the companies, because as a solution and technology provider, we have to be ready for offering and the deploying technologies for customers ahead of others. And this is a number how big our scope 3 emission is. So you can see our scope 3 emission is almost 1.5 gigaton as of 2019. So this is bigger than Japanese nationwide GHG emissions, which is 1.2 gigaton. But we committed to achieve net zero by 2040. That is only 16 years from now. So this is very challenging, but this is how serious we are to achieve by converting the fuel from hydrocarbon to cleaner energy. And also we try to electrify in internal combustion to the electrification. And also we try to offset the remaining emission by offering CCS, CCUS solutions. Then we set three pillars of the energy transition strategies. One, to decarbonize existing infrastructure and build hydrogen and the CO2 ecosystem. So these are three pillars we started to build since 2021. So from here, let me introduce the deeper for each ecosystem we are trying to build. So first, hydrogen and ammonia ecosystem we are trying to build. Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, as a technology and engineering company, we have been developing our in-house product and technologies by ourselves over many decades. So all blue color boxes are developed in-house throughout our R&D and research centers, like hydrogen combustion gas turbine, fuel cell engines, and also direct reduction technologies for steel making. So those are all utilization technologies of hydrogen. But so that we can deploy hydrogen utilization technologies, we need to expand the value chain for the upstream side, like a production and transportation. So since we started this activity 2021, we started investing and the partnering with the startups and the also industry players, so that we can fill the gap and connect the value chain, not only our product, and also develop product, so that we can deploy this new energy hydrogen. So for instance, the green hydrogen, we invested in 3 electrolyzer companies, and also we invested in the methane pyrolysis companies, so that we can offer low-cost hydrogen production technologies. And throughout the investment and the partnership, here is the current ecosystem in United States for the partnership with startup companies, and also actual project development throughout our technologies and capabilities. So in Utah, we are currently building the actual and first green hydrogen production and storage project from renewable power from California, so that we can store curtailed renewable power by producing hydrogen and store hydrogen underground salt cabin, and utilizing hydrogen for power generation by using our gas turbine. This is a first of kind green hydrogen project here in the United States, and we try to replicate similar project development across the United States. And all purple are marks shows in startups we invested last 3 years. So all the way from production technologies and also utilization technologies. So this is a hydrogen ecosystem we are trying to build throughout the project development and the partnership with startups. And the same as the CO2 ecosystem, this is another pillar for the energy transition strategies. So CO2 is another, buzzword currently, for the energy transition. And as we have in-house carbon capture technologies from flue gas, we have 70% market share of the capturing CO2 from flue gas from industrial emitters, all the way from power generation, hydrogen, cement, and steel. And those are our in-house technologies to capture CO2. But again, so that we can build the value chain or ecosystem of CO2, or we started partnering with utilization companies, the startups who has the innovative or methodology to utilize CO2 and they convert it into chemicals and the fuel. So Infinium and Sembiter factories, so those are two startups we invested last a couple of years. And also we are partnering with ExxonMobil so that we can connect the value chain from carbon capture to sequestration to store CO2 underground. So this is the ecosystem we are trying to build throughout our in-house technologies and the startups and also industrial players. So let me highlight Infinium, which we invested 3 years back. So this is a company from California who has innovative catalysts to convert CO2 and hydrogen into drop-in fuel for jet fuel and diesel. So they call it e-fuel because it is produced from electrolyzer and also renewable and CO2. So as Mitsubishi Heavy has capability to capture CO2 and produce hydrogen. So this is a kind of combination between two feedstock we can provide. So by having this solution to convert CO2 and hydrogen, this could be opportunities for us and for startup to develop project. This is one of the example we try to build throughout CO2 and hydrogen ecosystem. So they are currently demonstrating the first project here in Texas, and the Amazon is off taking their product from demonstration, and they have multiple project pipeline to commercialize their technologies in next couple of years. So those are example to have a startup partnership, and this is our thesis for startup investment. We call it climate tech investment, but that covers all the way from power, energy, carbon management, and industries. So we basically invest in the early and the middle stage startup, so that we can jointly create the business in next 5 years. And also our ticket size of investment is relatively small because we do value strategic return rather than financial return. In the last 3 years, we have invested in 12 startups, all the way from advanced renewable, hydrogen, and the CO2 ecosystem. So that we can fill the gap, as I explained in last several slides. So of course, we are partnering with venture capital as LP investors and the accelerators and the incubators. And also we have been co-investing with the major CVCs and the venture capitals who are also focusing on climate techs. So again, by having those partnership with startups and also our in-house product and the technologies, we can create a new value chain between hydrogen and CO2, and create the new values like producing new fuel or ammonia, as you can see on the screen. So this is a kind of new ecosystem trying to build throughout corporate innovation and also startup innovation. So this is a process we are executing throughout the investment for climate tech startup. The same as the BC and the other CBCs. So we keep exploring the new opportunities with startup ecosystem, and we ended up with getting into the deeper due diligence by seeking the chance of the fundraising and also building the potential strategic synergies as a strategic investor. And this is the most important part throughout our process, because again, we do value strategic return throughout the investment, and our goal is to jointly create the value with startups, like the building the actual project, and also developing the new IP and technology together, and also providing some some market intelligence throughout our network, so that we can build a win and win environment or give and take environment. We do value mutual intangible and the tangible values between startup and the Mitsubishi Heavy. So as you can see, we do share the marketing, the branding support, and also market information we get across global operation, so we can share and the create the strategy together. And also for tangible values, we provide is to find early stage customers, and also sometimes we take license for certain regions, or we do provide some engineering support and the integration with their core science or technologies with our business. So those are kind of mutual and the win environment we are trying to build. So yeah, that's the all I wanted to explain today. And so again, we are seriously trying to reach net zero throughout corporate innovation and the startup partnership. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much, Sakai-san. So yeah, you took us from the broad picture to some very detailed cases as well, and some themes to pull out of there, right? The fact that your company's products, if you add it up, have more emissions than Japan as a country. So
Yep.
when we talk about things like government to government relations or climate reduction, emissions reduction things, it's easy for people to get lost in the low resolution. Oh, you need to fix things in your country. Well, actually, it's this kind of big multinational conglomerate company that is operating in multiple places where the impact can be. Because of course, the climate change related technologies, the energy transformation is going to be very complicated. It's a complex process. So a multi-dimensional company like this, reducing your emissions helps not just Japan, not just the US, but everybody else that's your customers using it. And big Japanese companies, and Mitsubishi Heavy Industry is one of the biggest traditional companies, 150 years old. There used to be a criticism, well, what's the strategy? But in a way, this climate change and carbon net zero has provided a wonderful focus point. And a lot of big companies out there, their target is 2050. And I remember when we were talking earlier, 2040 is a great opportunity because then you can help everybody else. So
Exactly.
again, when
Yep.
so that's part of the ecosystem play. And what often happens in government to government talks or think tanks talking to governments, they underestimate how important the capitalist impetus is. And this is a business proposition as well. Moving quickly, being first, and then having an ecosystem to help everybody else. It's also a great business move. It's the right thing to do as a civilization, but it's also a great place to be as a business strategy. And so those kinds of things where we have a long time horizon company that's quite serious about this. And so again, thank you. Into these kinds of discussions, I think it's very important for US government, Japanese government, everybody talking to them to talk about some of these specifics, because it's not technologies just floating out there. It's technologies deployed by companies in very specific ways through specific partnerships in the ways that, and investments, the ways that you outlined. So thank you so much. Next, we'd like to turn to Aki Jiang, Jiang-san from Will. Thank you for joining.
Sure.
And because you're a very exciting example of global Japan, etc. Yeah. So thank you.
Yeah. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about Will today. So thank you, Kenji. Oh, it's not moving for some reason. Sorry, the screen is not moving. Oh. I think I'm moving. Can I try to stop share and then let me try again? Present and sorry about that. Here you are. Share screen. This should be working. Is it?
Okay, let's see if it moves. Oh, we can see your mouse. So
you can see my mouse. Oh, great.
There we go.
All
Thank
right.
you.
So before jumping into what we do at Will, I wanted to talk a little bit about myself, but I'm Aki Jiang. And some of you might be able to tell that Aki is a Japanese name and Jiang is not, but it's a Chinese name. So am I Chinese or Japanese? The answer is that I was born and raised in Japan, but my parents are Chinese. So I call myself Japanese. It's a combination of Chinese and Japanese. It's the word I'm trying to spread in my community, which has not been really successful. But my parents came to Japan from China to study at grad school. So they both did PhD degree, and I was born while they were still at the University of Tokyo doing PhD degree. So growing up, I always wanted to study abroad at some point because that's what my parents did. And they taught me the importance of exploring new worlds and exposing yourself to new cultures and different perspectives. So after college, I joined an American consulting firm called Kearney, where I supported Japanese companies going global and also the other way, global companies, mostly US companies entering the Japan market. And I earned a full scholarship from Masason Foundation to go to Stanford Business School, where I studied entrepreneurship, and I took some classes at D School where I learned design thinking. And then I joined Will after graduation. And it has been almost 5 years with this organization, but I would like to talk about what Will does. So Will is a venture capital firm with roughly $2 billion capital under management. And the unique thing about us is that we raised money from leading Japanese corporates, as you can see these logos in the slide. And you can see our logo in the middle, WIL, which stands for World Innovation Lab. So we are a VC firm, but we also want to position ourselves as a lab for large corporates. But what do you mean by lab? That goes back to our mission. So our mission is to increase the number of entrepreneurs in Japan to spur the spirit of innovation throughout the country. And our thesis is that to achieve this mission, large corporations in Japan need to work more closely with startups to increase the speed of business operation and decision making so that they can collaborate with startups and create new businesses. And we believe that Japanese companies these large corporates have talent, technology, capital, but the culture in general is, how do I say, it's being very, very cautious and sometimes avoiding failure, which is very different from Silicon Valley startup culture, which is rooted in the belief that failures are encouraged because it's the opportunity to learn. So at Will, we invest in startups, but we also work closely with large corporations who invested in our funds to help them work with startups and create new businesses. In another way, we said that we want to become Dejima and Kurofune. And if you know history of Japan, Dejima was an artificial island. This was off Nagasaki, but it's one of the few places where foreign trades and cultural exchanges were allowed during the isolationist Edo era, which was taking sakoku seisaku, which is low country policy. So essentially, it was one of the few places where you can learn from outside of Japan. And kurofune, which means black ships, refers to the Western vessels arriving in Japan during 16th and 19th century. And one of the most famous kurofune was led by Commodore Perry, who is from the United States, who essentially forced Japan in negotiating a treaty with the United States and effectively ending the Lock country period that lasted more than 200 years. And what we believe that Japan needs now is something like the JIMA, like an outpost where companies can focus on chasing new businesses without being interrupted by large corporate governance, and kurofune, a catalyst that can drive changes. So that's why we talk about the JIMA and kurofune as part of our mission. But how do we achieve this mission? We have 3 businesses, and I'll talk each of them in later slides. But one is investment, just like traditional VCs, we invest in startups. And then the second is business creation. We create joint ventures with our investors who are large corporations. And then the third business is empowerment. We provide corporate training programs to cultivate entrepreneurship within large corporates. So I'm going to explain one by one. But investment, we invest in startups, mostly in the US and Japan and some European companies. As I said, we are roughly managing $2 billion, and our tick size is typically from 10 million to 50 million. So we come in from Series B and onwards. It's a growth stage investment. And we are sector agnostic, but we invested a lot in B2B software, fintech, and some health tech solutions. And a unique thing about us is that we can tell our portfolio companies, we can help them expand business to different markets, especially for American companies that are trying to go to Japan market. And as you can imagine, it's not straightforward to enter the Japan market for US companies because the market culture are very different. So we have supported our portfolio companies to expand business to Japan in different way as in this slide. And we believe this is very important, not only for our portfolio companies, but also the whole Japanese startup ecosystem, because these fast-growing companies will enter Japan and they have to hire local talents. And these talents in Japan will learn how to scale business by observing these founders or country managers in Japan. So they can become potential founders in the future. And that's how it works in Silicon Valley. Founders are usually like former employee of fast-growing companies, and they decided to start their own company. So by doing this, we can help more founders to start their business in Japan potentially. So that's investment. And then the second business we have is business creation. And the thesis behind this is that large companies, large corporates in Japan have lots of interesting technologies, but some of them are unfortunately dormant. So we help these large corporates to explore potential of how to utilize their existing technologies and marketizing some products with these technologies. And we create joint venture with these large corporates. We have so far launched more than 10 companies with our investors. And one interesting example is the one on the top of this list called Soracom, which is an IoT communication platform. We created this company with NTT Docomo, and we sold this company to KDDI once. But later on, we decided to spin out this company from KDDI, and the company just went public this week. It was announced probably 2-3 days ago. It was on Nikkei newspaper. But this is a very interesting example. We call this IPO swing by IPO. And swing by is a term to describe this method for spacecraft to reach to a destination when they use the gravity of planet to accelerate the speed to go to the destination. And in this context, spacecraft is a startup and planet is corporate. So startups can use the power of corporate to accelerate the growth and then went public. So that's why we call it swing by IPO. And Sorcom is one of the first examples of swing by IPO. And as part of this business creation activity, we also help our investors create their own lab, which is a Dejima, as I explained in the previous slides. So it's the entity or the department where they can focus on creating new businesses, adopting new technologies without being interrupted by large corporate governance. And these are some of the examples that our investors launched as their Dejima. And then the last business we do is empowerment. So we provide corporate training program for our investors. And the reason we do this is because to spur innovation, we know that we need technology, we need capital, but the most important thing is actually talent. So that's why we want to provide this talent training program, especially for executives of large corporates to cultivate their entrepreneurship. We have a wide range of empowerment activities, including design thinking workshop, boot camp, and also we call it world residency. But large corporates can send expat to Silicon Valley and then work closely with us to pursue their specific mission that's given from the large corporates. And one interesting program that was created out of this empowerment activity is called Shido, Project Shido. So this project started more than 5 years ago, but the origin was that the former Prime Minister Abe was visiting Silicon Valley and he came to our office and saw the program we were running for our investors. And he was quite impressed and he wanted us to run a similar program for potential entrepreneurs in Japan, not only for our investors. And that's why we started Shido project, which was fully funded by the Japanese government, METI, and designed by Will and operated by us. We've been running this program for more than 5 years. There are more than 1,000 students who came out from this program. But basically, we offer these design thinking programs and help them build business. And for top performers, they can visit Silicon Valley to learn more. So that's what we do. And long story short, we are a venture capital firm with roughly $2 billion AUM. But we also position ourselves as a lab to help large corporates create new businesses and work closely with startups. And I work for the investment team of Will. So happy to share more about perspective from the investing side. That's all.
Great. Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, so after two companies that are traditional older companies doing new things, this is a new company doing new and exciting things. The swing by IPO, right? Just to clarify, it's so interesting because NTT wasn't using a lot of this intellectual property. Will came along and then helped spin it out and then made the company that sold to a competing telecom company, KDDI, and then from there doing the IPO. So a fascinating new set of paradigms underway. So yeah, we are at time, but the good thing about a webinar, unlike a physical gathering, is that if people get up and stream out, we don't notice. You can change your status. And then we are on YouTube as well. So if you have to leave now, thank you. And you can see the rest of our little conversation here on the YouTube feed after it's done. So we can spend another, if it's okay with all of you, about 10 minutes or so. I like to ask a set of questions before I turn to some from the audience that are my standard questions, because in US-Japan collaborations, there are often things that you expect to be a challenge that are actually a challenge, things that you don't expect to be a challenge that turn out to be a challenge. You also have things that you didn't expect to go so well. And then you have things that you thought this is going to go well, and it did. So if we think of it as a little matrix, sort of things that went really well, things that were a challenge, expected and unexpected, And a nice way to throw this to everybody is that anybody that has any one of those kinds of things that would like to share, you can just sort of jump in. And so expected or unexpected challenges or things that went well. Do you have any things that you'd like to share?
Maybe I can start with, yeah, so I think unexpected things that went well was to build relationship with Japanese companies that can be potentially interested in technologies or startups in the United States. Because when I joined Will, we were investing a lot in B2B software, fintech, but not a lot in healthcare. And I was personally passionate about healthcare because partly because it was COVID and the market was growing really fast. And I also see lots of problems in healthcare that needs to be fixed with technology. So I wanted to build relationship with companies that's in healthcare sector in Japan because our LP base was not necessarily linked to healthcare. And then I tried to reach out to pharma companies or hospitals. And so unexpected success was that they are willing to take the first meeting, even if they are not our investors, simply because they want to learn. They want to know what's happening in the world. And they're very curious and want to study more. So that was unexpected success to me because it's very important for me to build relationship with these large corporates who can potentially work with startups that I invest in the future. So that was a great success, and some of them even want to have like quarterly catch up to build relationship. But unexpected challenge was that these companies, they are willing to learn, they want to know what's happening, but not necessarily want to take the risk to actually use the product or adapt the new solutions if that's not already used by other companies in Japan. Nobody wants to become the first penguin. They always ask, is there any other large Japanese companies that's using this like software? So that's the unexpected challenge to me because they're willing to learn and they want to talk to them, but they just hesitate when it comes to real adoption. So
Thank you. And Aki has to catch a flight in a few minutes. So if she drops off, it's not that we offended her with our sophisticated discussion and questionable moderating. So thank you so much for joining us. I'd like to turn to Kuribayashi and Sakai-san if you have any of expected or expected.
So
thank you.
There's so many things happening since we created this initiative because Mitsubishi Heavy, as a over 100 years old company, have been doing the technology development in-house all the way until we started this initiative. So there are so many positive and sometimes negative feedbacks. For instance, we can do it by ourselves within our research engineers. But one of the unexpected success was we learned a lot innovative cultures from startups and the ecosystem, because even though we have a big budget of the R&D, so a venture capital money from the ecosystem of the startup is much much bigger than our budget for this certain development of technologies. And we learned a lot how startups are building idea and making it happen with very short term. So development speed is very different from what we have been doing over 100 years. So that is a biggest learning we had, and it was unexpected education for our people internally. Yep.
Wonderful, thank you.
Yes, for me, since I came here like 4 years ago, unexpected challenge was the country risk, political instability in Argentina, for example. Like U.S.-China conflict is continuing for a long time, and this year Trump is coming back. Seems like So I think in this those are all like kind of unexpected, at least from my point of view. So for the startup investment in the US, maybe the most important thing is the startups succeed in the US market first, not depending too much upon the international expansions, at least in the beginning. And also not too much dependent upon the government subsidies, which could change when the government administration changes, right? So, yeah, I mean, yeah, those are something I'm really checking right now when we do the due diligence of the startup investment in the US.
Oh yeah, that's interesting. For many years, a lot of people were frustrated with Japan for lots of things not happening as fast as they wanted in government, and not enough policies happening fast enough. Then the US, with the past couple administrations, many people wish things wouldn't happen so fast because a sudden reverse course with the administration, several of those. And so what's going to happen? Yeah, big concern. So I'd like to ask you one more set of questions, and it can be either one in any way you want, which is there anything in your activities that you would like to ask either the US government or the Japanese government to do more of or to do less of? And this can be, this is in your personal capacity, not as a representative of your company, so no worries. And then another one would be any messages you have for US-Japan collaborations, either for the Japan side or the US side or both. What to keep in mind given your experiences at the forefront of a lot of this. So either of those in any way you'd like.
Yeah, let me address the first part. And as I have been working in the United States last 10 years, and the last 4 years I have been doing this startup investment and partnership. And I was really surprised how US government is supporting for the first of kind project, which, energy related technology startup is trying to deploy. For instance, one of our portfolio named Monolith Material, who is doing methane pyrolysis technology development, is building the first of kind commercial project in Nebraska. And the U.S. government, DOE, is financing up to $1 billion, which I never seen in Japan, which is funding over $1 billion for the first of kind project by taking the risk. So that enables startup to scale up and verify and also demonstrate their technologies quickly and very fast. So that kind of support for the Japanese government would be expected in some ways.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, oh, that's a great point. Yeah, first of kind, the government as an innovator through that kind of support. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Kuribayashi?
Okay, so for me, yeah. So my expectation for the U.S. government is to relax the CFIUS regulations. So I heard that the CFIUS does not really apply to UK or Canada or in Australia, right? An investment from those countries, right? So I hope the U.S. government treats Japan to be the same as those allied nations, because sometimes it's going to be the hurdle for us, for example, participate as a board member or a board observer of the startup company we invest in, because we cannot really hear too much about the confidential information, for example, of the company. So the CFIUS could be the hurdle for Japanese companies to invest in the US startup companies. So that's something I want to say.
Wonderful. Yeah, thank you. No, I was hoping you'd say that actually. CFIUS is the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States. And basically, many close allies of the US do not have to go through this extra certification process in order to be able to invest in companies here. But for some odd reason, Japan is one of the countries that you do have to go through CFIUS. And many big Japanese companies and investors do have difficulties just like this, because it slows everything down as if it wasn't slow enough already given company internal processes. So I keep asking people, how can this change? And I keep getting different answers, but let's keep asking as well. Okay, so it's about 5:10. I think we had a really good set of high resolution presentations that were exciting. I'm hoping that some of our audience, this has reframed some of the ways you think about big Japanese companies working with the US and economic relations, energy transformation, what investments are, and it's not just money coming in, it's different kinds of strategic returns, and climate change, very complicated, but we have actors at the forefront of that. World Innovation Lab, some very interesting ways of transforming, and a lot of the investors into WIL are companies that are looking for, as a first step, foothold to where Sumitomo Corporation and Mitsubishi Heavy Industries already are. You've been here a long time, you've built up things, and you have a deep set of web of relationships and business activities. So I'd like to thank you so much for taking time out of your busy days. Thank you, Kuribayashi-san. Thank you, Sakai-san. Thank you to Aki, and wish her safe travels. And thanks to all audience members for joining us. And we hope to see you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you very
Great.
much.
Thank you very much.